Hello, I am Minecraft Phenom 08, and this is episode 45 of my Billions and Billions challenge. In today's episode, I am going to be building a heat exchanger from the mod NuclearCraft to deal with the hot coolants that I am producing with my molten salt reactor, so let's get started. The first thing that I need to do is I need to grab the heat exchanger frames, and I need to construct the frame of this multi-block structure. And this multi-block structure is built in much the same way that the actual salt reactor is built itself. So we just need to build a frame around the edge of it. So let's get started with that. This heat exchanger is going to be 11 by 11 by 11 in dimensions, and hopefully that will work pretty well. I do have a template set up over here to tell me exactly how I'm going to design the interior of the reactor. However, I discovered just a minute ago that I actually put it on the floor and it needs to be bumped up one. So everything is going to be need to be bumped up one in my when I actually design the interior of this heat exchanger. So let's start building up now. This needs to be 11 high, and because this is on the floor where it shouldn't be, it actually should be this tall. So that should be good. If I didn't screw anything up, this should be 11 high. So the interior is going to be 9 by 9 by 9, which is very similar to the actual reactor itself. It's 9 by 9 by, I don't know, like 18 or something. I'm not sure how long the reactor is, but it's 9 by 9. 9 wide and 9 high. So let's continue building the frame here. We're actually getting pretty close to having the frame done. And it's actually kind of nice to be able to hover right now. Except for the fact I move very quickly. Okay, there we go, and let's continue here. Cool, so that is the frame complete. Let's go ahead and slap down the controller. I'm going to put the controller kind of in the same place that I put my controller for the molten salt reactor, and that's going to be right here. And I'm going to go ahead and put a lever right here so that I can toggle the reactor on, or the heat exchanger, sorry, on and off with this lever. So the next thing I want to do is I want to set down the floor and the ceiling here, and that will be the heat exchanger shells. And once again, I'm going to be using some glass on the front and back of this heat exchanger. So let's get rid of these torches because they are in the way for right now. And then let's set down the beginning of this, and then I can go ahead and use a wand to actually complete the floor and ceiling here. So actually, I probably should change my mode here. Send left, right, up, and down. We do not want that. Okay, yes, that is correct. Okay, so there's the floor and the ceiling, and so let's go ahead and do the front and back glass. And for that, once again, we will be able to use the wand. So now we need to have this in the extend up and down mode, and there we go. So that glass is done. Now let's do this glass. Did I run out of glass, or oh, I don't know what happened right there. I actually placed the blocks, but at first it didn't look like it did. So the next thing I want to do is I want to actually go ahead and fill in these corners. Oh wait, I don't have any corners that aren't going to be used. So actually, I'm going to move this controller. I'm going to move it to the front here because I actually need this block space right here to be able to accept fluid. So let's go ahead and do that before I forget. There's the controller. Here's the lever. And now on either end of this reactor, I am going to be using, and where did they go? Heat exchanger vents. So let's go ahead and grab some of those right now. I'm not going to grab all of them. Actually, let's go ahead and grab all of them. Let's get rid of these blocks that I don't need, because either end will be completely filled with the heat exchanger vents. However, I need to do a little something before I actually start to place all of these down on this end. And that's because the flows of materials in this heat exchanger are going to be different. The water is going to be flowing. Let me walk over here. The water is actually going to be flowing from left to right, whereas the hot coolant will be flowing from right to left. And that is because we need counterflow, and counterflow works well in heat exchangers. if you do not have counterflow, if the fluids are flowing the same direction as in the water and the hot coolants were flowing from right to left, you would not get proper heating of the water into, I think it'll be superheated steam once it's through this heat exchanger. But you definitely want to have counterflow, and I will try to remember to link the creator of this mod's actual tutorial for the heat exchangers. He explains this a lot better than I can, so I'm not even going to try. But you want counterflow, just trust me on that, in your heat exchanger here, just to have it run properly. So that's going to actually make things a little bit complicated in setting up this reactor. But what I want to do right now is let's go ahead and hook up the outs for my hot coolants. And my hot coolants are stored in these black hole tanks over here, or in this other building in my diamond building where the reactor is. So if we go up here, this is the reactor itself. It is rather large. It does produce quite a bit of hot coolant. And the hot coolant for right now is just being stored in these black hole tanks. However, I want to actually grab some of the conduit. And you know what? I need to run back to my main base for just a second, I think, because I do want to grab some speed upgrades. So let me see if I can't make some of those real fast. And I actually want 24 more. Okay, so it looks like this is going to be able to craft those rather quickly. So what? Okay, yeah. Okay, so we have 60 of these, which is what I wanted. Actually, I probably only need 45. Because right now I'm not going to be dealing with the actual used up fission fuel. So what I'm going to do is, this is the hot tin. So let's go ahead and hook this up. This is going to be out on the white channel, and this will be always on. Let's drop in some speed upgrades to make that as quick as possible. This is the cryothium, so let's go ahead and hook that up on the light blue channel. So this is light blue. Let me find that real fast. Light blue, extract only. Once again, add some of the speed upgrades. And this right here is the lapis, the hot Eutechnic NAK lapis fluid. So let's go ahead and hook this up on the blue channel. And there we go. And once again, speed upgrades to make that extraction faster. For right now, what I'm going to do is I am going to have this... I'm just going to have this insert on green and have this not extracting right now. In the future, I will need to do something with the used up fuel in this particular black hole tank, but for right now, I'm not going to worry about that. So what this line does is it will carry the hot coolant up to the reactor. So let's go up to the the heat exchanger, sorry. And so back there is my actual template for how I'm going to set up the interior of the reactor. And the different colors of the blocks indicate what is going to be going on. So the cryothium coolers, which is the light blue blocks, they are actually going to be where I'm going to have the hot cryothium fluid flowing from this near side of the reactor, or the heat exchanger, sorry, to the far side of the heat exchanger. The tin coolers, which are the white blocks, are going to be where I'm going to hook up the tin inlets, and the tin fluid will flow from the near side to the far side. And actually on the far side, I'm going to run a return line so that I can turn the now cool coolants back to their black hole tanks, where I store the cool coolants, where I have the creation system to actually create those coolants. So that it will indeed form a loop. So the cool coolant will go into the salt reactor, the hot coolant will come into the heat exchanger, it will come out as cool coolant again, and it will flow back to the start of the line. So the lapis blocks that I have over here, the lapis lazuli blocks, they are going to be where I'm going to have water flowing from this side of the reactor to now the far side of the reactor, and that will actually create, I believe, superheated steam. And then where I have the redstone coolers, that's where I'm actually going to have the the hot lapis fluid flowing from this near side to the far side of the reactor. And I used the redstone coolers just to signify that, because I actually had lapis coolers at first, but they blend in really well with the lapis lazuli blocks, so I just wanted to have a little contrast there. So that's kind of how I'm going to set up this reactor. So let's actually start setting up, let's do the inlets over here for the hot cooler. So what I'm going to do right now is And everything needs to be bumped up one because for whatever reason I forgot that this is not going to be sitting on the floor. So we will have inlet for cryothium here. There should be 2 blocks in between, and then 2 blocks in between once again. And then let's see, down here we're going to have 1 block and then 2 inlets. Water and then 2 more inlets and then an inlet up there. Okay, so here we're going to have an inlet here, 2 blocks, and then another inlet for coolants, cryothium coolants, and then this will be 10 coolants, and then this column is entirely water, as is this column and this column. And then here we will have, this is basically the same as that column I set up right here. Same pattern wise anyways. Okay, there we go. And then we just have this one over here. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to actually get the fluids, the correct colors all going. So let's get rid of the cobblestone for right now because I don't want these cobblestone blocks to actually be here. In fact, in the future, everything on either end of this heat exchanger will be the heat exchanger vents. But for purposes of being able to set this up pretty easily, I wanted to actually be able to see through this to actually see my template over there. In fact, I'm actually going to set up this same pattern on the other side as well. But for right now, I just want to actually start to set these up. So this will be insert on the light blue channel. And do I have my conduit probe? I'm not sure if I do. I do not. So I actually want to run back and get that because that will be super, super useful. There it is. Okay, let's run back to the NuclearCraft base. Well, that was loud. And so let's set up the cryothium first. So this will be in on the light blue and not out at all. So let's go ahead and copy that, and then let's paste it across all of where we have the cryothium. So, and then looks like the center one here, the one down here, and then this one. I believe that's all the cryothium. Okay, so hopefully that's all the cryothium. If I missed something, then I can go back and hit that in the future. So let's go ahead and do the 10 next. So let's start right here. This will be on the white. Insert on the white channel, so let's go ahead and copy those settings and let's go ahead and start pasting. And then I think, is that it for the 10? Are there only 5? It looks like there's only 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that looks good. And then the rest of them are going to be lapis, so that will be on the blue channel. So insert on the blue, let's go ahead and copy that. So anywhere where I still have the greens here, I just need to change that to the blue. Okay, so that looks all good for right now. And what I'm going to have to do on this side is I'm going to set up the exact same pattern, except my fluid conduits will be on the outs. So I'm just going to have extract always on, and I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera because it's literally going to be the same process as this, what I just did, except, like I said, extracting the fluid rather than inserting it. And once I have that done, I will be right back. So the next step in this build is going to be to finish out this back wall here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be slapping down heat exchangers. And where I don't have any conduit connecting up, I'm actually going to slap down a dense infinite water source, and that will provide water to this end of the reactor, and that water will flow from the left side of the heat exchanger, to the right side and become superheated steam. So let's go ahead and finish placing down all of these heat exchanger vents here, and that process shouldn't take too long. There should be about 60 of these. And then we're just going to slap down the dense infinite water sources. If I did my math correctly, I should just need the 60 that I have with me. And if I did their math wrong, well, then I might need more. I might need less. And by the way I made my template here is kind of trial and error. But one of the goals that I had in mind was to process the fluids in about equivalent proportions as to they are used or created as hot coolants in the fission reactor. And so it just involved a bunch of math, but hopefully my math is just about right. So this heat exchanger should process the hot fluids into their cool variants just about as fast, or not as fast, but in equivalent proportions as they are created over there. So the thing is, I am probably going to set up more heat exchangers in this building. That's why I don't have a roof on it yet. And that's going to be quite a big project, but the thing is, they are going to be set up pretty much the exact same way as this heat exchanger will be set up. So, and I start off by throwing down the water source in the wrong place here. So let's go ahead and let's actually do this column by column. That might be the easier way to do this. There are certain columns that actually don't have anything except for water inlets on this side. There are 4 of them actually. So by doing it by column, we'll make this probably a little bit easier here. Okay, so I should have... Okay, that should be everything, and I can't see. It looks like it is. One thing I might want to do is disconnect. You know what? Yeah, I probably should. So where I see all these green connections here, what I probably need to do is go ahead and disconnect these. And I think what I'm going to do is... Because if I do this, I can't actually copy those settings with the conduit probe. Maybe I can. No, I can't. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this be out on some color that I'm never going to use. So let's just say out on pink. And let's copy those settings. And anywhere where it's hooked up to water, I'm going to just paste those settings. It shouldn't allow water in here because it's never on. And you know what? I think I'm going to actually reverse this. Because just in case that these dense infinite water source blocks can actually push into the conduits, I'm going to actually set them up to be insert on pink. I'm not going to be using pink for anything, so I think that's a pretty safe bet. So I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera because there's quite a bit of these connections I need to change. And once I have all that done, I will be right back. So I believe I have all of my fluid conduit set up correctly. So the next thing that I want to do is I actually want to hook up these lines here to the return line that I have built. And basically this just runs, actually I'm not sure that I have it completely set up. And actually I know I don't. So this line actually will run all the way back to my storage facility for all of my cool coolants. And what I actually need to do is I actually need to set everything up. So that'll take just a minute, but let's go ahead and do it. And right now I'm only using 3 different types of coolant. So I'm using the cryothium coolant here, the lapis coolant, and the tin coolant. So I just need to set these up. So this is going to be insert on the light blue channel. This is going to be on the blue channel here. And let's go ahead and get rid of that extraction. And this is going to be insert on the white channel. Okay, so that's cool, and I think that's all I need to do here. I will clean this up eventually, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. So all I need to do is I need to hook up all of this conduit to this conduit right here, and actually I think I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this right here. And just run this kind of straight up from right here. And actually I want to go ahead and do this in the center. So let's actually kick this over. And then I can run it up from there. So if you'll notice, I did take away my template, and that's because I did want a little more room over here. So let's go ahead and run this straight over and then down. Once again, I don't want to reconnect with the water here. So that's why I ran it kind of out. And let's see, how do I want to do this up here? I think what I'm going to do on the upper end is I'm going to run it just straight over and then across to the main line here. like that. And then I think I'm going to run everything in columns. I'm not sure the most efficient way to do this. But basically, I just need to hook all of this up to the main line, make sure that it can get returned. So let's actually, is there anywhere? Nope. Let's just run this out like this. Okay, so that's this column. I still need to do this column right here. And this just needs to come out and up. This is kind of a mess. And actually, I don't even need that. So let me grab my crescent hammer to make actually getting rid of these a little bit easier. Because that's already connected. And I can run this over or up. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so I have all of these done. I have all of these done. I have basically these 3 columns done. I just need these 2 columns over here. And I did not mean to fall through the floor there. And then, what do I have? I'm doing this differently on this side. It doesn't really matter. This is going to look bad no matter what. Just as long as it functions, I'll be okay with it. Okay, so that's hooked up. That's hooked up. Okay, I think everything's all hooked up now. So all of the cool coolant that I will be getting on this side of the reactor should be able to go back to their storage containers back in the, all the way in the gold building actually. So that's this side of the reactor is completely set up at this point. So on this side of the reactor, what I'm going to be needing to do is all of the spaces where I have holes is going to be producing steam. And I will have the heat exchanger vents and I will need to hook that up. But actually, that's going to be the last thing I'm going to do. For right now, let's go ahead and grab what I need next, which would be the actual thermoconducting alloy heat exchangers. And these actually carry the coolants and the steam as well, the water and the water to the steam. So let's grab all of these guys, and these are sided blocks just like the fission vessels and the coolant heat exchangers or the coolant heaters in the fission reactors. And so this is gonna be a little bit complicated here, but what we need to do is okay, so actually we're gonna need to, this is gonna be a little bit complicated to set up because of the order of how I did everything. So anyways, what I need to do is I need to hold shift and I need to right click to make the far side default, and you can't hardly see it because my GUI for the graphics for my draconic armor is kind of in the way, but it says default, so that needs to be default. This needs to be input spread. And so on this side, what I need to do is I need to place this down, and on the far side I need to have it as product out, and on this side it needs to be default. So there we go. And so then what I need to do is I need to carry this clear across the room like this by shifting and right clicking, and that basically just carries the settings of this block into the new block that I'm placing. So I need to do that for all of these here, and this is going to take quite a while, so I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera. Once I have all of these blocks placed, I will be right back. Now that I have all of these thermoconducting alloy heat exchanger tubes set up, I need to actually set up the water to steam heat exchanger tubes. So that process is going to be much the same as the process I just did, except for the fact that the settings will be a little bit different. So on the far side, I need to set that up to be default, and this needs to be as the input spread. So let's go ahead and run this across the room. And then on the very end of this right here, what we need to do is this side no longer needs to be product spread, it needs to be product out. And so I need to go ahead and do that for all of the rest of the tubes here, and that's going to take quite a while. So once I have all of this done, I will be right back. So we're almost done with the heat exchanger here. So the last thing I need to do to actually to finish building the actual heat exchanger itself is to seal up this end of the heat exchanger with the heat exchanger vents, and that should be pretty easy. I just need to basically place these heat exchanger vents wherever there is an empty space. So along the thermoconducting alloy heat exchanging tubes. So one thing I didn't mention in earlier on in this episode is that there are 3 different tiers of the alloy heat exchanging tube, or the heat exchanging tubes. I am using the best variant because I have lots and lots of materials, and so basically cost isn't really a factor to me. But you can build these with the lower tier heat exchanging tubes, and you'll still probably get a lot of power out of these things. But yeah, this should be formed. So it is 9x9x9 heat exchanger. There are 729 tubes in here. Right now the mean efficiency is 0 because nothing is happening. So what I need to do on the heat exchanger vents here that has nothing connected, I will be pulling superheated steam, I believe, out of these particular ones. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and set up some black hole tanks here. And these are just going to store the superheated steam for right now. Obviously, in the future, I'm going to build a turbine or turbines to actually use this steam. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and store it. So let's put this right here, and let's actually make sure that that's not connected to anything. I don't want it connected at all, to be honest. So let's get rid of that. So basically, these should be able to accept steam. And what I'm going to do over here, and I should probably grab my conduit probe because I will need that. I'm going to extract on, I think the light gray channel is going to be the ticket here. So let's see here, light gray. And let's go ahead and get rid of the insert there. And there should be nothing in there, and it doesn't look like there is. So let's have this extract always on. Let's go ahead and copy that. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is hook up the rest of these heat exchanger vents. And you know what? I can probably go ahead and do this off camera. This is going to take a little while. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And once I have all of these hooked up and all of the conduits set up to be extract on the light gray channel, I will be right back. So I have all of the conduit placed down and configured. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to run some lines up, and let's actually do something like this right here. So let's just run this up. And what I need to do real fast is I need this to be insert on the light gray only. In the future, I will set up this probably to be extract on some channel to actually get the superheated steam to turbine or something. But for right now, I'm not going to worry about that. So let's go ahead and copy these settings right here to be in on the light gray. And let's go ahead and actually hook that up. And then I just need to basically hook this up to that conduit over there. And theoretically, everything should be good. Shouldn't have any conflicts anywhere, theoretically anyways. So now what I need to do is I actually need to hook this conduit up to this conduit under here. And so for that, I'm just going to knock out this block right here. And so once I hook this up, we should start getting the hot coolant flow into the reactor, or not the reactor, the heat exchanger, sorry. So it looks like we do have some coolant in here, and I'm not sure if it has propagated all the way across the reactor. That does take a little bit of time. But if I flip this lever, I should start getting some superheated steam over here. And one thing I do want to check is the volumes of the fluids I have over here as I turn this on. Because theoretically, the fluid should start flowing back into these tanks here once it is cooled down. So, you know what? Let's go ahead and flip the lever and see if it's going to work. We do have a decent amount of the hot coolant from the reactor. So let's turn this on. Okay, so we're getting some high pressure steam here. And we're getting quite a bit of it. So that's cool. So it does look like everything is running smoothly so far. We are getting quite a bit of steam. Certain tanks are getting more steam than others. Actually, not so much. It looks like it's pretty evenly spread out. So that is cool. Let's leave this on and let's run back down over here to see if the coolants are making their way back over here. Fantastic. That is fantastic. So I didn't screw anything up, at least nothing major. And if I did screw something up, it was maybe, I don't know, maybe a tube or two. Hopefully I didn't screw anything up. If I did screw up some of the tubes, there would be no way that I would know that unless I knew the exact math right here as far as the mean efficiency. And seeing as I haven't ever set up one of these heat exchangers, I really have no idea how well it's going to perform. So yeah, we're getting a lot of steam. Let's see how quickly I'm actually getting rid of the coolant. And for a second, I'm probably going to turn on this reactor. So yeah, that's... Holy crap, these are empty already. Interesting. So I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that at all. So I wonder how much coolant I actually have left. So it looks like these tanks... Yeah, it looks like the remainder of the coolant is actually being used. So my steam production should slow down anytime now. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn on my reactor and see how quickly I acquire the hot coolants, because I definitely suspect that this reactor is going to produce coolants faster than they can be used by the heat exchanger, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So actually right now... Okay, so it's really, really close, at least right now. The thing is, it might be busy filling the buffers for the heat exchanger, and so I might not actually be using that much coolant. Another thing I should mention is that in the last episode when I set this up, I was worried about the actual the propagation speed of the coolant across the reactor. In fact, I have reason to believe that it's not propagating as quickly as it's using it. So if I leave this reactor on for a long amount of time, which I was unwilling to do without the coolant being able to be recycled, because I would eventually run out of coolant, there's a chance that my net heat gen will actually start to change as some of my coolers inside this reactor start running out of the actual coolant themselves. But for right now, everything looks good. And I'm very, very, very surprised that that heat exchanger is able to keep up at this point. I might not need to build any more heat exchangers, to be honest, because it may be keeping up, which would be absolutely fantastic. So I think what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to run this for a little while, and I'm going to keep an eye on this right here, because I don't want this reactor to melt down or anything. I want to make sure that it's going to be stable for the long term. And like I said earlier, I do have reason to believe that I might have an issue with the propagation speed of the fluid coolant through the reactor. So I'm just going to sit here and watch this for a little while, and probably clean some stuff up as well with some conduit facades in the basements here. And I will be back in a little bit. So in fact, it does look like I am having issues. If I left this on for a little while, I actually got it to be where it was about even in terms of the net heat gen. And as you can see, this is not the negative 212,000 or whatever it started out as, and it is fluctuating quite rapidly. So it looks like I'm probably going to have to toggle this reactor on and off if I actually end up using it for extended periods of time. Or I can probably go ahead and set up some redstone control, because that's actually fairly easy with the mod NuclearCraft. It does give you pretty good options as far as that goes. So this reactor can hold a decent amount of heat, but I'm going to start producing heat very rapidly if I don't watch it. So let's go ahead and shut this off for right now. It should continue to turn the coolant into hot coolant as it winds down here. And actually, it's already out of heat, so it didn't acquire that much heat, but it did acquire some. So let's see. Do I have any coolant left over? Okay, yes. So I am using the coolant a little bit faster than I am running it through the heat exchanger, which I kind of suspected that in the first place. Let me see if I'm actually out of coolant over here. So that might actually be the issue. Rather than not actually having enough coolant, it's that we're not running through the heat exchanger quick enough. So we're actually running out over here. It might not be a propagation through the reactor problem. So I will probably need to work to identify the actual problem between episodes. But for right now, I'm not going to worry about it. I am not going to run this reactor long term until I have some turbines to actually use, because that would be kind of dumb. I can only store so much steam, and I would probably be able to hit that buffer pretty quickly. I already have 17,000 buckets worth of steam in each of these black hole units, which is quite a bit. So I think I'm going to go ahead and call this a good episode. I can go ahead and leave this heat exchanger on all the time. It won't do anything if it doesn't have any of the hot coolant. It's just going to sit here. So it doesn't do any harm. The reactor, on the other hand, I definitely need to leave off for the time being. So in today's episode, I set up this heat exchanger from the mod NuclearCraft. It is rather a beastly contraption. It was also pretty complex to set up, but it does seem to be set up correctly. It is running through the hot coolant and returning it. It is making cool coolant out of the hot coolant and some of this high pressure steam here. So that's going to be pretty fantastic. I will be able to use this high pressure steam in the future to run some turbines to actually create some energy. But one thing I would suggest is to watch the tutorials on all of this stuff on, I think, the NuclearCraft mod creator's channel. I think his name is Tom Dodd, but don't quote me on that. I will try to throw a link to his tutorial on the heat exchanger, because he probably describes things a little bit better than I do here. And if you want to build this stuff for yourself, go ahead. It does take a lot of work, though, like I've said, but it should be very beneficial once I get everything done. So anyways, if you enjoyed today's episode where I built this awesome heat exchanger here, definitely feel free to drop a like down below. And if you like watching large automation type stuff in modern Minecraft, such as this NuclearCraft stuff that I've been setting up the last few episodes, definitely consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. Anyways, signing off, I am Minecraft Phenom 08, and I will see you next time.